Hello, I'm Jonathan Kay from SimsUshare. Today, I'm going to be discussing scenario conditions, how to evolve scenario conditions, and a new solution that we have from SimsUshare as part of the program. Essentially, when you have a condition, let's say you arrive on scene, incipient smoke, and now you want to change it to, let's say, some fire extension or to a knockdown. Well, you know that our typical locations are just like slides. So for example, you might have an initial location, Bravo, but you could make a slide for a Bravo incipient, a Bravo knockdown, a Bravo extension, and then flip to the correct slide based on whatever the current condition is. So you still make all your locations and all the conditions in this kind of slideshow, and you're setting up your navigation to flip people over to the correct condition. So now, what happens though now with the Command Training Center, where you have an instructor controlling multiple units? If you now flip someone over, let's say they're at the alpha side, and they've shown up at their arrival condition, and now you want to move them over to the fire extension. Well, with the Command Training Center, you know, I'm going to go back over here to show you. If I'm here in an exercise, and I start an exercise, let's say I'll call it Myrtle, and I'll just say it's sort of Myrtle. I'll just use the same there. I'll go and pick the exercise. I'll start the exercise, and now let's say over here, what I've done with this is to make a special name. You'll see here I've got my alpha side, and I make A, B, which would be for getting better, or W for getting worse, or D for getting defensive. And that doesn't have to be a single letter, it can be anything you want. But now if I actually join the exercise here, if I go and say, let's say start multiplayer mode, and I'm going to join the CTC server and use the exercise code Myrtle, I hit join. I'll keep it over here. It's already on this machine. So you'll see here I have, there's ladder 1, and if I want to now do this for ladder 2 as well, or for let's say engine, actually let me go back over for, let me join now for engine 1. This is typically how you might use the CTC to change your conditions. So let's say I'm going here, Myrtle, but now this one is going to be engine 1. Hit join, and I keep over here. So now we have our 2 units there. They're both at alpha. If I now move engine 1 to, let's say, over to the delta side, you'll see how now it's moving there. And so we're coordinating this as they move. But let's say now I want to make the conditions better. So what I can do, if I've created separate slides for different conditions, is I can say move engine 1. Let me move this over so you'll be able to see at the same time. I can say move engine 1 over to, I'm going to actually make it worse. And now that's much worse. I mean, it's getting much worse. But notice ladder 1 is staying at its incipient there. So if I wanted to make the condition change all at once, I'd have to move them individually. Now, if you only have 2 units, it's not such a bad thing. But imagine you have 4, 5, 6 units or more. What you've done is now add a lot of time between when I actually change the condition and when when everyone is seeing the correct result for that condition. And similarly, see, if I move to delta, I've now got to go through and move everyone over so that they're actually seeing the same thing. So that's a problem. It interrupts from the correct view that people are supposed to see. So up until now, there really hasn't been a good solution. I mean, you could make your sequences change over time. The good thing about time is the scenario evolves for all participants. So if I made the condition automatically change, then when that time happens, regardless of the screen, they would move to the correct condition. The problem with doing it by time is the evolution is fixed. So regardless of the crew action, the instructor doesn't have the control. So again, what I've shown over here is if the instructor moves participants to a new location, the pros are the instructor can control the scenario evolution, but the cons is really that the participants have to be moved manually. So we really focused on how do we address the cons of this? How do we move people over all at once so that wherever they are, A, B, C, or wherever, they get moved to the correct look? And that's what we call the SimsUshare CTC States. That's a long word. You'll see we've tried to make this really simple. And simple meaning that if you don't care about states, if you're doing stuff the way you're doing now, that's fine. It won't interfere with you. So the idea of states is, and that's we sort of kind of hinted at it with those square brackets. Like over here, as I was showing here, when you make your scenario, you create locations, and the key thing is going to be you're going to name them with square brackets. It can be anything in those brackets. It can be better, worse, it can be knockdown, extension, it doesn't really matter. But what SimsUshare is going to do is infer the different conditions based on how you've named your locations. So it's going to infer when it sees a square bracket B, and I'll show you this will be, when you'll create your initial state, which is your collection of locations as you would with the regular naming. Now, when you create a condition, let's say a knockdown, you give it a name, and then over here, as you see, for example, side A knockdown, you would name, just when you create your location or rename it, if you needed to change it, you'd create it A, and then in square brackets, knock, or whatever code you want to use. And you name all your other locations and states similarly. So you'd have BC, interior, knock, or whatever that happens to be. And then SimsUshare, when it sees the presence of these square brackets, it's going to pull that out, and then when you load in the CTC an exercise, a scenario that has those, you see over here, it's going to add a special drop down, change state to. And what that's going to do is let you, in one push, move everyone from wherever they currently are into the corresponding location for that name. So, and it's going to do by matching the name. That's how it knows. So you have to have the same name, side A, extension. Or side A knockdown. So you have to have the same beginning, the beginning of the name, and then you put the different state in brackets. So for example, let me go over here and show you, I'll go back, we'll leave this exercise, go back over here. So what I've done in this example, I'm going to edit, and I'm going to go here to residential. I have this example. So now here we are. If we see here, I've made 3 conditions, an initial one, an extension, and a knockdown. So you'll see here knockdown, I mean that's extension, and if I go here, knockdown. A little tip over here is notice also you can move between the locations with next, control right arrow, control left arrow. So if I want to go back, I can do control left arrow, control left arrow. So that's how I can quickly edit location slides. So this is knockdown. Now if I go to the next one, there's Bravo, that's Bravo. If you look at the top here, you'll see here now when I go to the next one, that's Bravo fire extension, and then this is Bravo knockdown. So you are going to be adding your locations with a special suffix. And that way, for people who don't know about it, they don't have to know about it. The system works exactly the same. You can name it however you'd like to. But if you just name the location with that state, the system will automatically know what to do. Now, as you name your locations, you might, and you create them, you might want to order them. You notice how I have here side A, extension knock, Bravo, extension knock. It all looks very nice and orderly. I'm not that orderly. What happens is I don't have that much planning to know to create them exactly in this order. What you can do is when you create your locations, and when you want to rearrange them, you can, just for your own look, you can go to manage location, and here is where you can actually go and move them around. So typically I'll create a new one, and then I'll new a new location, and I'll move it just for convenience into something that looks reasonable here. The users don't care about this order over here. The users, doesn't matter the internal order. This internal order is only relevant for when you're lining up which locations are being viewed here. So let's see how this works now. So now I'm going to go over, we have this available right now in our test development. This is a feature that's going to be available in about a week or two by February 1st. So I'm just showing this now as kind of a preview. So I'm going to go here and I'll say create an exercise, and I'll say here this exercise is going to be example exercise. I'm going to make up a code, EX1, and I'm going to take that scenario residential I already uploaded. I'm going to hit create, and now what I'm going to do is I'll just start this here, and you'll see these are all the slides. I've made them so that there are, I want to make it so that there are 1, 2, 3 per row. So let me actually go here and select 3 per row. And so I've ordered them so I can see the conditions down the columns. You can order your locations however you want them in the location list in the scenario. So let's now go over and I'm going to go back over here. Finish the simulation. I'm going to go back to this here, and now I'm going to connect to my my development server. I'm going to put whatever the code is. I called it EX1. Hit join, and now it already has the scenario on this machine, so I don't need to re-download it. So there's engine 1. Let me also now go over to my, I have the other one in the other exercise called engine 1. Let me leave that exercise. I'm going to go back. Oh, actually, I could really just do the same thing there. Start multiplayer mode. I'm going to go to the development server, and I'm going to say EX1, but now EX1, I'm going to call this one ladder 1. So now when I hit join, I'm going to keep that. So now we have here, we've got exercise 1 and ladder 1. Now, as I move around, you see you see how it's sort of moving there. But now, if I go here to this, let me actually put this side by side so you can see. Let's see, I'm going to go and put this, it should be side by side there. And I'm just going to go click there. So now I will also reduce this so we can see, reduce it there. So now if I want to go and change everyone at once, I just go click here. Notice it has pulled out the EXT and knock. If I want to move everyone to the extension, I just click on it and it moves everyone over to their knockdown, their corresponding knockdown. So you see, I've got that over here. Let me go, if I want to move to knockdown, I click on knockdown and now it goes there. If I want to move back, we're working on it to go back to the initial right now, but if I want to go back to, that will work as well to go back to the initial just by clicking. We'll probably have something that will say initial. But you see how I can do in one fell swoop, just click and go over. And it doesn't matter where the person is as long as it's named. It could be on the same location, that's okay. Now notice another thing here, when you're in this mode, by default, it won't let you change the condition by jumping. So like over here, we left in an arrow. This arrow here should go take engine 1 from the extension down to the side A, the incipient, but it blocks you. You notice I click on it. So when you're in this special mode, it's not going to let arrows jump across to different locations. I'm sorry, to different conditions. That's kind of a protective mechanism to make sure this thing you're not in an inconsistent state. So even if you had an arrow going to side A or to wherever, it's not going to let you do that. It's going to keep you in that condition. So that's a really exciting feature, very important feature for doing anything more than a couple units, having exercises. So I was mentioning this is going to be ready in about a week, week and a half. The update will be transparent. There'll be no downloads or changes on your side. Our free example sims, the 20, I would say we have probably about 15 to 20 that are already compatible because that was in our process of naming them. And you can get started making your sims state compatible just by naming the locations or renaming the locations. And to do that, I'll just sort of refresh over here to show you. If let's say I'm going to go full screen here. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to say, let's say I had a simulation. I'll take like let's just take like this timing one over here. And let's say I wanted to change A to be, let's say this is going to be the garage, the garage smoke state. All I have to do is go and say rename location and change this to be like garage smoke. And then remember, every time you create a new location, you want to name it with the corresponding location name. And now when you use it in the CTC, not in the regular program, not in just the viewer, but when you use it in the CTC, it's going to infer garage smoke as a state and put it into that dropdown. Well, that's 15 minutes. I'm going to see now if you want to use the Q&A, you want to use the chat window to answer, like I'll answer any questions. Hope you enjoyed that. We're going to be updating our help material shortly. So we'll have quick start guides, we'll have videos about using it. But I think this feature really adds an enormous capability, particularly when you're managing more than just a couple units at the same time, and will help you also organize your simulations. Just organize your simulations from condition perspective. It is a bit of manual work, but we also wanted to make sure that it didn't interfere with the basic operation, the basic use. So if someone doesn't know about this, they can be blissfully ignorant. That's sort of my middle name, blissfully ignorant of these types of upgrades. But now that you know, you can actually make a more sophisticated simulation that would be easier to control. Thank you for your attention, and open it up for questions.